Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the shadowy, crumbling corners of 18th century Paris, where the streets reek of spoiled milk. The lamps burn dim and something is always moving just out of the corner of your eye. Imagine that. The stone gutters overflow with slop cats, yowl from broken windows, and a pair of yellow eyes blink from behind a rotting barrel. That's not a cat. It's something far bolder and hungrier. You tug your scarf higher, but it doesn't block the scent. The air is thick with damp wool, horse dung, and something sour. Maybe it's old cheese, maybe it's fear. You glance down. There, a blur of motion. A rat, no, several. They scatter as your boot hits the cobblestone. You didn't bring a lantern. Mistake. You're about to learn that Paris in this era isn't just the city of light or love. It's also the city of scuttling claws, gnawed wood, and whispered infestations. But don't worry, you won't be alone down there. Licensed rat hunters patrol these alleys, 2 strange men and a few stranger women, who walk with long poles and soft steps, speaking in hushed tones about nests and tunnels and things that hiss back. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your city and what time you're listening. I love seeing where we all drift off from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself moving through a maze of narrow, uneven alleys. Some buildings lean forward like they're trying to whisper secrets across the street. In truth, they're just sagging under their own weight foundations, rotting beneath years of neglect. Between these cracked facades beneath heavy wood shutters, the real inhabitants stir. They outnumber the people, some say. They've seen every secret and swallowed every scrap. It's 1724. Versailles glitters, nobles dance, and artists sketch. But none of that is here. You're in the other Paris, the forgotten Paris. The Paris without powdered wigs. Here, a seamstress lives above a candlemaker who boils fat next to a butcher's stall. And beneath them, deep in the earth, lies the kingdom of rats. You shuffle past a broken doorframe. Inside, on a mound of hay and potato peelings, a dog sleeps. Or maybe it's a pile of rags. You don't investigate. Rats sometimes take over abandoned spaces, and you don't want to intrude. The crunch of straw underfoot gives them away. You pause. Listen. 1, 2, 6 pairs of tiny feet retreat into the dark. Here's the strange thing Paris isn't unaware. People know about the rats. They joke, they complain, they even name them. But for decades, no one really acts. Why? Because rats aren't just a nuisance, they're a fact of life. Like mold on bread or rain in spring. People fear disease, yes, but they fear poverty more. And when you're poor, you throw nothing away. You scrape every pot. You toss the bones and peels into the street. And the rats, they clean it up. In a twisted way, they're part of the ecosystem. Of course some people try. Landlords sometimes hire children to scatter ashes or set crude traps. But it's never enough. Paris was never built for sanitation. The medieval waste system still lingers, chamber pots dumped from balconies, piss-soaked alleys, carcasses carted only when the smell gets unbearable. And under it all, the sewers. Not tunnels as you know them. These are crooked, shifting things. Some are no wider than your shoulders. Others yawn beneath entire districts paved in slime and mystery. Some say they stretch for miles. Some say people disappear there. Rats thrive in these depths. They feast, breed, and grow bold. You've heard stories. Rats that don't run. Rats that bite. Rats that drag things away. You pass a bakery. The air smells of yeast and soot. Fresh loaves cool in the window. You wonder how many crumbs fall each day, how many morsels slip into cracks, feeding generations of whiskered scavengers. Nearby, a man in a patched coat whistles. He carries a sack that twitches. You stare. He grins, revealing a missing tooth, and taps his walking stick hollow with notches carved along its shaft. A rat hunter, one of the few. They're not official yet. Not licensed. That comes later. But the profession is already forming. Men paid in coin or cider to poke into walls, lift floorboards, and root out nests. Their dogs are half blind, their cats more scarred than sleek. Yet they keep the rat population just low enough for people to pretend it's not there. Back in your own time, you might laugh. Rats in Paris. A joke, but tonight it's no joke. Tonight they are everywhere. You just haven't seen them. Yet. You duck beneath a low archway. Above you, someone empties a bowl from a window. It splatters nearby water or soup or something worse. A rat squeals. You flinch. This is life in 18th century Paris. Not all salons and lace. Much of it is this shadow's stink and silence broken only by gnawing teeth. The city won't admit it, but it's under siege. Not by soldiers or rebels, but by something older. Something with fur claws and a habit of surviving. And the battle is about to begin, because soon someone will decide enough is enough. Licenses will be granted. Methods will evolve. The rat will be declared an enemy of the state, but not yet. For now, Paris is still pretending. And you're walking through the heart of that denial, every step echoing in a city that doesn't want to hear. So, you walk slower. You breathe quieter. And somewhere deep beneath your feet, something breathes with you. You step over a crooked paving stone, its edge worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, and feel the squish beneath your heel. Best not to look. It could be mud, or not. Either way, the rats won't mind. They like the mess. In fact, it's their buffet. What nobody told you, what most Parisians themselves avoided discussing, is that the city had been losing the rat war for decades. Quietly. Systematically. These weren't just accidental infestations. This was a full-on colonization. And the rats. Oh, they adapted beautifully. They didn't just nibble scraps. They learned how to open pantries. They tunneled between houses. They bred in chimneys, bit through mattress stuffing, and once, according to one baker, gnawed straight through a copper kettle just to reach leftover stew. His apprentice fainted. The rats kept eating. You might imagine rats as lone scavengers darting out and vanishing. But in 18th century Paris, they began to act more like a network. Clans. Not literal mafia families, but the behavior patterns matched territory scent trails and messengers. You toss an apple core near the Seine, and 20 minutes later a rat in Montmartre knows about it. Or so the stories go. That's the thing everyone knew about the rats, but no one wanted to own the problem. Merchants blamed fishmongers. Fishmongers blamed bakers. Bakers blamed the poor. The poor blamed the aristocrats. And the aristocrats naturally blamed the gutters. This denial ran deep. The elite didn't want to admit that the most civilized city in Europe had a vermin issue. Paris was supposed to be the center of enlightenment, not rodent central. And so the infestation spread, in whispers. People whispered in markets, "Don't leave your boots out overnight, or the rats'll chew through the leather." They whispered on stairwells. Old Madame Doucet woke up with a rat in her wig again. They whispered in churches, "This must be God's punishment." And when plague cropped up in nearby towns, the whispers grew sharper. Historians still argue whether rats were directly blamed for specific outbreaks in Paris during this time, or if the connection was buried under layers of religious guilt and civic shame. Some journals mention them obliquely unseen beasts, others are more direct, those teeth that carry death. But in taverns and butcher shops, the whispers turned practical. Have you heard about the men from the Marais? Yes, the ones who charge a coin per head? They use something called rat bellows. No joke, caught 30 in a day. This is where the tide began to shift. Not at the university, not at the palace, but among the working class. They needed food. They needed sleep. They needed fewer rats in their flour barrels. So informal rat catchers, men who had once been chimney sweeps, grave diggers, or failed apprentices found new purpose. They fashioned tools from broomsticks, glued cheese onto the ends, and began experimenting. One early favorite, the rat paddle. A wooden plank with iron nails hammered through at odd angles. Not exactly humane, but effective. You could swat a rat mid-run if your timing was right and your nerves steady. Then came the pipe trap. A hollow tube filled with grain leading to a dead-end chamber with only one exit yours. Pull the string and the flap closes. Dozens of rats squealing and spinning in tight circles. Not the kind of thing you'd want under your bed. but the real innovation, psychological warfare. One particularly inventive rat man, Jules, from Les Halles, claimed he could outsmart the rats. You have to think like them, he said. Be sneaky. Be filthy. So Jules began tracking scent trails with chalk. He left crumbs in spirals. He dangled string just above floorboards, letting it sway gently like a false tail. He would sit silent for hours, mimicking rat movements with his fingers. And it worked. He once caught 89 in a single night. His story spread, and suddenly every quarter wanted its own rat whisperer. Demand exploded. What had been a dirty job became a specialized one. Of course not everyone approved. The city's magistrates grumbled that unofficial ratmen caused more panic than progress. They dramatize things, said one. They make it fashionable to fear rats. This is dangerous. But beneath that protest lay a deeper concern. What if they were right? What if Paris truly was in danger? Not from foreign armies, but from something that lived in its walls. Meanwhile, some ratmen started wearing distinctive coats. Not uniforms exactly, but enough to be noticed. They carried sacks with iron clasps. One even painted a rat skull on his hat. Branding 18th century style. Still, there was no central system, no registry, no official training. You could declare yourself a rat catcher simply by showing up and waving a dead rat. And some did conning desperate housewives and shopkeepers out of their coins, then slipping away before the rats returned. One fringe tidbit worth mentioning, several ratmen swore by something called rat speech, a series of whistles and tongue clicks meant to mimic rodent communication. Supposedly it could lure rats out of hiding. Did it work? Possibly. Or maybe they just believed it hard enough to make it real. Parisian theater troupes even picked up on this trend. One play, La Vermine et la Vengeance, featured a rat catcher as the tragic hero. Audiences loved it. The lines between profession and performance blurred, and still the rats came. You turn a corner and see a bakery shuttered tight. Not because it's night, but because the rats have taken over. They chewed through the floor, ate all the flour, left behind a nest of pink squirming pups in the sugar barrel. The baker sleeps in his cart now, too afraid to go back inside. You keep walking. Past the butcher with extra nails on his counter legs. Past the tavern with bowls hanging from the ceiling, not the tables. Past the old nun who swears she saw a rat wink at her. No one says anything outright. But they all know. They all feel it. Paris has a rat problem, and soon it won't be whispered anymore. The cobblestones beneath your boots give a low groan, as if the city itself is tired of carrying this secret. Paris, proud and perfumed on its surface, hides a festering truth in its underlayers, a truth that scurries, breeds, and multiplies beneath every bougie bakery and gilded chapel. To really understand the rise of rat hunters, you first have to understand their enemy's empire. And that empire was built on garbage. Sewers as you know them today, those neat tunnels you forget exist, did not grace 18th century Paris. Instead, imagine a system closer to a broken root network. It sprawled uneven and organic beneath the city's feet. Some parts were ancient Roman. Others were medieval guesses at drainage. Most were choked with filth. Some streets had open gullies where waste ran freely in shallow channels. Others had hidden drains which were mostly just sunken brick corridors, where everything from spoiled cabbage leaves to rotting horse parts got flushed by the occasional bucket of rain, if you were lucky. Now picture this from a rat's point of view. Dark, wet tunnels stretching for miles. Endless food. No predators. Soft corners to nest in. Warm bricks in winter. You'd never leave. And most didn't. Rats didn't just live in these sewers, they thrived. They grew bold. They learned which bakeries dumped their scraps on which nights, which doors stayed ajar, which windowsills had soft cheese resting to cool. One particularly chilling account from the Faubourg Saint-Marcel describes a group of rats that allegedly learned to work in teams. One would distract a shopkeeper's dog while two others raided the flour sack. Is that an exaggeration? Probably. But in this city, the line between fact and folklore is very thin and often chewed through. You head downhill toward the lower quarters. The smell hits first something between boiled cabbage sweat and the particular funk of damp straw. This is where the poorest lived closest to the sewers, where entire families crammed into one-room hovels and rats practically had assigned bunks. There's an alley here nicknamed La Couleuvre the Snake because it twists like one. Locals whisper that rats gather there in swarms during the dark of the moon. You pass it quickly. Your foot nearly slips on a patch of something organic. Again, best not to investigate. The slums of Paris were never truly cleaned. Not in this era. Night soil, the polite term for human waste, was collected sporadically. Sometimes it simply wasn't. Buckets were left to overflow. Rats didn't mind. There's a popular assumption today that rats followed the filth. But here's the twist: in 18th century Paris, filth sometimes followed them. Once a nest took root, the surrounding area decayed faster. A bakery near a rat warren might find its bread moldy before sunrise. Cloth sellers might find holes in bolts they hadn't even unrolled yet. And the noise. No one talks about the noise. When it was quiet, truly quiet, you could hear them. Scratching, gnawing, tiny claws on wood, squeaks that echoed like laughter. Some said the sound could drive a man mad. One innkeeper swore he lost his hearing just to stop noticing it. There were attempts at extermination, of course. City officials tried spreading quicklime near suspected breeding grounds. Others poured boiling water into gutters. One bold man even tried fire. The results were smoky and not particularly effective. Historians still argue whether the rat explosion was a result of climate conditions, urban sprawl, or increased grain imports. All likely played a part. Paris's growth had outpaced its infrastructure, and rats love chaos. But perhaps the strangest consequence of the rat surge was the philosophical reaction. That's right, some Enlightenment thinkers began to speculate on the social role of rats. Jean-Michel Pluot, a Mineur pamphleteer and frequent dinner guest of Rousseau, once wrote, "The rat, like the rogue, survives on the edge of propriety, and thus teaches us the limits of our constructed order." You blink. Wait, was that respect? Yes. A few intellectuals began to romanticize the rat as a symbol of resistant survival or nature's revenge. Plays were written. Poems were penned. Someone even painted a mural titled Le Roi Rat, the Rat King, depicting a majestic rat seated on a throne of broken violins. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens weren't waxing philosophical. They were lining their clothes with cedar shavings and sleeping with iron pans on their heads. Because rats had begun chewing hair. Seriously, one fringe tidbit that always stuns some rats were caught with jewelry in their nests. Bits of earrings, brass buttons, even coins. Were they collecting? Were they attracted to the shine? No one knows, but the rumor gave rise to a Parisian superstition that rats steal your soul piece by piece if you sleep too soundly. You shake off the shiver and continue through Rue de Charenton, where the gutters run fast from a recent rain. The water churns brown and bubbling, and from the edges 2 sets of whiskers peek out, watching. The rat problem wasn't just gross, it was systemic. It seeped into the walls, literally and metaphorically. It was part of the fabric of Parisian life, and until someone dared to name it, the rats ruled without opposition. But they would be named, and soon. You hear a bell clang faintly in the distance, a night watchman or perhaps the butcher's warning. Either way, it marks the turn of an era, because as you'll see, the rat hunters are coming, and they're not what you expect. You follow the clang of that distant bell as it fades into the fog, each echo a thread pulling you deeper into the underbelly of the city. The street narrows, the buildings grow taller and closer together, their eaves like crooked teeth biting into the sky. Somewhere ahead, a door creaks open and shuts. Footsteps vanish into the murk. You're alone again with the rats. You turn down a lane known locally as Rue Saint-Repos Street, without rest. The name isn't poetic. It's practical. No one sleeps well here. Every night the scratching returns. Under the floors, inside the walls, beneath the bed. And yet oddly, this is where a revolution begins. Not the political kind with flags and guillotines, but a quieter one. A broom handle and leather gloves kind. This is where breadcrumbs meant death. Let's talk about crumbs. Harmless, right? Just a few flakes from the crust of your pain de campagne. But in 18th century Paris, those crumbs were bait. Traps. Clues. A trail of doom. You see, bread was sacred, heavily regulated. Flour riots weren't uncommon, and bakers operated under strict guild laws. If you wasted bread even as a citizen, you risked legal fines or worse. But rats didn't care. And they adored bread. When a bakery discarded even the smallest morsels, it was like ringing a dinner bell. Within hours, a swarm could descend. They came through gutters, chimneys, or the gaps beneath loose cobbles. They chewed through wood cloth, even leather aprons, just to get their teeth on the crust. Some bakeries tried tossing old bread into the Seine, but guess who could swim? That's right. Rats. Entire families of them diving like tiny furred pirates, hauling soggy baguette chunks back to their nests. There's one infamous case well documented in police records where a bakery in Saint-Antoine became so overrun that rats began emerging during the day. Shoppers fled. The baker fled. The rats did not. And that's when the city could no longer look away. The health council was convened. Men in robes sat around a splintered table, arguing over whether rats could carry disease. The irony. By then, the plague had already knocked on several doors. Death certificates quietly cited fevers, malignant flux, or simply wasting illness. Everyone knew what it meant. No one wanted to say it aloud. The turning point came when a child, a baker's apprentice, died, bitten while sweeping under a counter. The wound festered. He convulsed. He passed. And though his name was quickly forgotten, his death lit a spark. Enter the hunters of Rue de la Mort. No, that's not metaphorical. There really was a Rue de la Mort Street of Death in the Marais district. Officially renamed centuries later, but at the time it earned its name honestly. It housed tanners, slaughterhouses, and a peculiar brotherhood of men who had turned rat-catching into something between a trade and a calling. They weren't glamorous. They weren't even liked. But they were useful. You push open a creaky side gate and find yourself in a courtyard littered with broken crates, coiled ropes, and... was that a femur? Hopefully from a cow. In the corner, under a sagging canopy, sit 3 men sharpening thin, spike-tipped poles. They hum as they work. One chews a sprig of something lavender to mask the stench. These are early rat hunters, and they are different. Not thugs, not fools, but experts. Each has his own method. One prefers traps baited with pig fat. Another uses his bare hands wrapped, of course, in thick layers of cured goatskin. The third swears by fire, though he's been banned from several districts for obvious reasons. Their dogs lie sleeping nearby. Not elegant hounds, but low, muscular creatures with torn ears and cautious eyes. They know what's coming. The hunters speak in shorthand gnaw point, nest hollow, red trail, and pass flasks between them. You're offered a sip. You decline, probably wise. They tell stories. About the time they found a rat's nest inside a church organ pipe. About the man who wore boots lined with honey to attract rats' spoiler. It didn't end well. About the night they caught one with fur white as snow and eyes the color of blood. That one they buried with salt. Just in case. Not all rat catchers are like this. Some work alone. Some are drunks. A few are frauds. But this trio, there's something else, almost reverent. They know their enemy. They respect it. Because rats are clever, adaptable, fast. They learn. They recognize traps. They memorize routines. Some even seem to know when poison's been laid. One of the hunters whispers, "They can smell guilt." You laugh. He doesn't. Historians debate this part, whether these early rat hunters were officially sanctioned yet, or still operating in a legal gray zone. City records are inconsistent. Some list them as sanitation auxiliaries. Others call them nuisance reducers. One simply labels them necessary evils. But whatever their title, their role was growing. The city needed them. The people feared them. And the rats, they watched them. Tonight, you'll sleep in an attic room above a chandler's shop. You'll bolt the shutters, tuck your pants into your socks, maybe place a brick on the lid of the flour jar. But sleep won't come easy. Because you heard them just now, didn't you? A soft patter. In the wall. Maybe nothing. Maybe not. You wake to a peculiar sound, soft, rapid, rhythmic. For a moment you think it's rain on the rooftop, but the sky is dry. Then it stops. A pause. Then again, tap, tap, tap. Not above. Below. You sit up slowly, not daring to light a candle. The silence hangs heavy. And then, like a slow exhale, the scratching returns. It's inside the wall. You're not alone. This is the Paris you never see on postcards. The one where sleep is fragile and dreams come with claws. The rats are restless tonight. You shuffle down the narrow steps into the chandler's shop below. The air smells like old wax and burnt wicks. The shopkeeper is already awake. He doesn't look surprised to see you. He just shrugs and gestures to a row of upturned pots on the counter. "Caught 2 this morning," he says almost proudly. You nod. The morning begins with death here. Small, necessary, and unceremonious. But today is different. Because you've heard about someone new in town, someone not just hunting rats, but hunting for something else, legitimacy. Meet Guillaume Delacour. No one's quite sure where he came from. He claims to have worked with a plague response unit in Lyon. Others say he's just a clever fraud with good boots. Either way, he's got ambition, and that's more dangerous than poison. Guillaume doesn't just kill rats. He documents them, measures them, catalogs them. He draws little sketches, notes the shape of their droppings, and even tags certain nests with painted wax seals. You must know your enemy to defeat it, he tells anyone who'll listen. And Paris listens, because Guillaume's not working in secret. He's courting attention. He's lobbying for something radical, an official license to hunt rats. Licensing seems like a formality today, but in 18th century Paris it was a revolutionary idea. Until then, rat catchers were like shadows necessary, but unofficial, tolerated, but unsanctioned. Guillaume wants more. He wants recognition. He wants structure. He wants to be part of the solution. So he writes letters. To city councils, to health magistrates, to newspapers. He even petitions the bishop for moral support, arguing that cleansing the city is a godly act. The responses vary. Some laugh, others frown. One paper publishes his letter next to an editorial titled, "Let them eat cats." But the message spreads. Soon, other rat catchers follow his lead. They start wearing badges homemade at first bits of tin scraps of ribbon. Some carve rat silhouettes into walking sticks. One eccentric fellow even fashions a tricorn hat with a mummified rat perched on top like a grotesque feather. It's not about vanity. It's about identity. These men are no longer just gutter ghosts. They're becoming a force. Guillaume pushes further. He proposes a training program. Let us teach the next generation, he says. Let us document the habits of these beasts, build maps of infestation, establish protocols. Some officials are intrigued. Others roll their eyes. One councilman quips, "What's next? A university for cockroaches." But beneath the sarcasm lies something deeper fear. Because licensing isn't just paperwork. It's admission. It's saying out loud, we have a problem. And Paris isn't ready to say that yet. Still, momentum builds. Rats are increasingly visible. Markets report stock losses. Docks smell worse than usual. A bishop's cat goes missing and is later found half-eaten in a bell tower. People begin whispering again, but this time the whispers carry names. Delacour's men were here last night. They found 5 nests under the bakery. They used something called a bait spiral. Did you see the drawing? That rat had fangs. Of course some rat catchers resist, the old guard. They scoff at licenses, calling them parchment for prudes. One growls, "You think a rat cares if you're official." But even they feel the shift, because now citizens are choosing their rat men carefully. Word spreads about who's effective, who's gentle, who actually shows up. The days of random bashing with broom handles are ending. The city is professionalizing its war. Meanwhile, the rats adapt. Some seem to vanish entirely. Nests once teeming now sit empty, as if the rats know the hunters are coming. Others grow more aggressive. A servant girl in Montmartre reports being bitten on the ankle while sweeping. A seamstress finds shredded lace in her cupboard lace that was inside a locked trunk. There's even talk of rat retaliation. One hunter claims his trap was disabled springs unhooked bait untouched. Another finds droppings arranged in the shape of an arrow. Surely nonsense, probably coincidence, but still. Guillaume takes these reports seriously. He starts logging them. He publishes a pamphlet on the intelligence of the urban rat. It's half science, half speculation, and entirely captivating. Some call it madness. Others call it prophecy. One page contains the line, "To hunt the rat is to hunt ourselves, our waste, our carelessness, our shadows." Historians still debate whether this was sincere or satire. Guillaume never clarified, but the phrase caught on. It appeared on broadsheets, was scribbled on alley walls, and even sung mockingly by street performers with stuffed rats on sticks. But despite mockery, Guillaume's vision wins traction. By winter, the city council holds a formal vote to license, or not to license. The result narrowly in favor, and just like that, a new chapter begins. Official badges are issued, clumsily designed but symbolically powerful. Rat hunters are registered, assigned districts, given quotas. Guillaume is named the first inspector of vermin affairs, a title he wears with bemused pride. It's a small step, really, but a profound one. For the first time, Paris says it out loud. We have a rat problem. And now someone is finally allowed to do something about it. The next morning, you find yourself at the edge of the Marché des Innocents, watching a man hammer a sheet of parchment to a wooden post. He steps back, adjusts his spectacles, and nods. The ink is still wet, but the title is clear. Licensed Rat Catchers, District 7. A crowd gathers, some scoff. Others lean in, eyes scanning for familiar names. There it is, Guillaume Delacour listed first. And beneath him, Etienne Two Fingers, Margot Le Savetier, and Father Louis. No one knows if he's really ordained. You've seen these people before, drifting through back alleys, moving like wraiths with sacks, tongs, or rusted cages. But now they're legitimate. They're official. And the weight of that ink has changed everything. To become licensed a rat catcher must now pass an examination. Not academic. Of course, this isn't the Sorbonne. The requirements are surprisingly practical, and frankly, a little bizarre. Step 1, demonstrate a functioning trap of original design. Step 2, identify 6 types of rat droppings blindfolded. Step 3, recite the oath of civic sanitation, recently drafted by Delacour himself, and written in an oddly lyrical rhyming couplet form. The final line, "With broom or flame, I vow to sweep what claws and gnaws and steals our sleep." It's campy, but it sticks. There's even a ceremonial badge presentation, well, more like a sweaty handshake, and a crusty leather patch sewn onto the coat. But it feels ceremonial. And for many, that's enough. Licensed rat catchers begin to organize. They form informal guilds, share methods, trade supplies. One group meets weekly at a tavern called La Tête du Fromage. They sit by the back hearth, sipping watered wine and comparing wounds. Margot Le Savetier, one of the few women licensed early on, becomes an underground legend. She's wiry fast and fights dirty, once reportedly biting a rat back. Her nickname comes from her former trade shoemaking. Her leather gloves are cut from the same material she once used for dainty slippers. She's also a genius with traps. One of her contraptions, the twister box, spins a rat in a false tunnel until it collapses from vertigo. Is it humane? Not especially. Is it effective? Oh yes. But the most popular tool among hunters isn't mechanical. It's the rat tongue. Let me explain. The rat tongue is a long, curved rod with a tufted end coated in sweet grease. It lures rats close with scent, then whup, used like a fly swatter. Quick, cruel, and satisfying. Each hunter personalizes their version. Some carve notches for every kill. Others paint theirs with stripes. One paints little eyes on the tip, claiming it frightens the rats into freezing. Scientific basis? None. But again, belief is a powerful thing. And the licensing process, odd as it may be, does something remarkable. It brings the war into the open. Shopkeepers begin reporting nests. Families pay for regular sweeps. Landlords are fined for ignored infestations. Rat hunting becomes a civic ritual. But as the hunters grow bolder, so do the rats. It's subtle at first. Nests appear in new places, higher, harder to reach. Traps are avoided with uncanny precision. Dogs grow nervous. One refuses to enter a bakery entirely. Another claws at floorboards all night, howling at something under the stone. Theories spread. Some say the rats have developed a warning system. Vibrations, scent trails, or even squealed codes. One licensed hunter swears she heard rats discussing a trap in the wine cellar. Most laugh, but not all. Historians still debate whether rats in 18th century Paris truly exhibited signs of adaptive intelligence beyond what we'd expect. But contemporary journals document several strange behaviors. Rats avoiding only poisoned bait, even when identical bait nearby was untouched. Synchronized movement 24 rats entering and exiting a bakery in total silence, as if by command. Nest walls reinforced with metal scraps, pins, even broken bits of porcelain. These aren't just scavengers anymore. They're survivalists. And so training evolves. Licensed catchers now meet monthly for rat seminars. One is titled Know Thy Enemy, hosted by Delacour himself. He draws diagrams, presents a rat skull labeled with inked lines, and passes around molted tails in little jars. The catchers, rough as they are, listen with surprising reverence. Because they've seen things. One has a scar on his thigh, where a rat bit through wolf flesh and nearly hit bone. Another lost 2 fingers. Bit clean, he says, holding up the stump. Didn't even bleed much. That's the scary part. And then there's Father Lewis. He's the quiet one. Carries a pouch of holy water and quotes scripture while setting traps. Claims rats are unholy messengers, but also pets one, a blind albino he keeps in his coat, named Clement. You ask him why. He shrugs and says, Know thy enemy. It's around this time that Delacour proposes the most controversial reform, Yeti-Rit census maps. Each licensed catcher is assigned a district and instructed to record all sightings, nests, and anomalies. The data is compiled weekly and posted publicly. Transparency is cleanliness, Delacour says. A map of vermin is a map of the future, and the maps are horrifying. Entire neighborhoods are shaded in dense black ink. Red circles mark suspected rat capitals. Some quarters are entirely eclipsed. One map shows a curved line of activity that mirrors the Seine, and then crosses it. The implication is clear: nowhere is safe. Suddenly, Parisians stop laughing. The city begins to move. Waste collection improves. Drainage is discussed. New laws limit street dumping. And rat catchers, once invisible, are now saluted. But not everyone is pleased. Old aristocrats grumble about making peasants into heroes. One newspaper publishes a cartoon mocking licensed hunters as rat dandies, complete with wigs, frilly cuffs, and rats bowing at their feet. But mockery doesn't stop the march. Paris has crossed a line. It's fighting back. And under all the noise, one quiet truth hums like a warning. The rats are listening. It's just before dawn when you slip into a narrow cul-de-sac behind a wine merchant's stall. The sky is a shade of pale charcoal, and the fog hangs low, stirring only when a rat scurries across the cobbles. You notice something new. The alley smells faintly of vinegar and burnt cloves. That's not an accident. Licensed rat catchers are experimenting again. This time smell warfare. Cloves, garlic, and camphor are soaked in old wine and sprayed along baseboards. One hunter claims rats hate the smell. Another swears it just makes them drunk. Either way, it's part of a growing toolkit of peculiar methods the newly legitimized hunters are testing across the city. Today, you're shadowing one such hunter, Gérard Le Fromage. No one knows his real last name. He smells permanently of brie and always carries a pocket full of rinds for bait, or lunch, as he says. Jared's specialty: cheese, bait, and wooden boots. He claims the boots are essential. The rats, they know the sound of leather, he says. But this he stomps on the cobbles, his carved wooden soles echoing like a wine barrel splitting. This confuses them, makes them curious, and it seems to work. In the basement of an old printmaker's shop, he catches 6 within the hour, 2 in a spring trap, 1 with a gloved swipe, and 3 who simply wandered into a barrel laced with blue cheese and didn't notice the lid dropping. You sit on an overturned crate watching the process. It's messy, precise, almost surgical. Gerard talks as he works. People think it's about killing. It's not. It's about control. You must know where they eat, sleep, breed. Rats are like artists. They leave patterns. He gestures to a greasy smear along the wall. That's a tail mark. See how it curves. She turned left. Pregnant females always do. You raise an eyebrow. He nods. Don't laugh. I've caught 24 just by watching grease patterns. It's absurd, and yet strangely believable. The truth is, by this point in the rat war, methodology is everything. Licensed hunters develop obsessions. Gerard has his boots. Margot insists on cleaning every trap with ash and vinegar to remove city stink. Delacour now wears tinted spectacles. He claims they help him see trails and shadows. One hunter uses a long, coiled trumpet horn not to signal, but to amplify the sound of movement behind walls. He calls it the whisper finder. Another swears by his bait harmonica. The idea, he plays a few slow notes, then drops cheese nearby. According to him, it softens the rats, makes them curious, even affectionate. You'd laugh until you see him catch 4 in 10 minutes using nothing but a harmonica and a slice of Gruyere. Historians often skip these details. They like numbers, how many rats were killed, which districts cleared, first the drop in food spoilage by percentage. But the heart of the licensed rat hunter movement lies in these quirks. The rituals, tools, and strange bits of folk wisdom passed hand to hand, barrel to barrel. Take, for instance, the copper boots. An outlier named Madame Rousseau commissions a blacksmith to forge her a pair. Heavy, ridiculous. But she claims the scent of copper confuses the rat's whiskers. They twitch wrong, she says. Lose their sense of distance, like trying to dance with one eye closed. Does it work? No idea, but Madame Rousseau becomes a local legend regardless. People in her district swear the rats actually avoid her home now. That's the thing, whether it's real science or superstition, these hunters are building something new. A culture, a methodology, a community of slightly unhinged, deeply committed people who believe the war against rats can be won one trap boot, or wheel of cheese at a time. Of course the rats adapt. They start avoiding specific smells. Some nests are found stuffed with herbs in apparent countermeasure. One catcher finds a pile of mint leaves arranged like a barrier. Coincidence, maybe, but unsettling. Others report rats biting through rope traps, rolling small stones to trigger spring traps, even dragging poisoned bait into corners and ignoring it. You begin to wonder, are they watching you? In one bakery basement, a hunter swears he locked the door. An hour later, a single rat sits in the center of the room staring. Not eating, not moving, just waiting. It leaves before he can act. Whispers begin to swirl again. Rat ghosts. Rat kings. One popular tavern tale tells of a phantom rat the size of a rabbit, who leads others in silent parades through the crypts of Saint-Denis. Sightings multiply. Reality bends. But the hunters, they keep working. The city now provides a modest stipend per confirmed tale. Not much, but enough for bread and wine. Some catchers make a small fortune, others lose toe's dignity and once a cartwheel to sabotage. Yes, some of the old elite are still not thrilled about the rise of these new civic heroes. Still, public sentiment shifts. Children imitate the hunters poking at crates with sticks. Housewives hang garlic in windows, not for vampires, but for rats. A theater puts on a tragicomedy called La Chasse Souterraine. The underground hunt featuring a heroic rat hunter who dies saving a bakery from a rat siege. The audience weeps, and in the city archives, a new document is drafted. The Register of Approved Vermin Tactics. It's messy, loosely written, but it includes everything from trap blueprints to bait types to rat psychology theory. It reads more like a cookbook than a manual, but it's a start. The war is no longer hidden. It's cultural, official, and in some strange way kind of beautiful. You step out of the printmaker's shop, blinking at the rising sun. The air smells of dew ink and a faint hint of cheese. You haven't seen a rat in hours, but you feel them, waiting. You return to the Rue Mouffetard in the late afternoon, your boots dragging slightly, your mind swimming with the day's strange sights, vinegar-washed thresholds, harmonicas, that tame rodents in Margot's twister box, still spinning faintly in your memory, like a child's toy gone wrong. You pause beside a food cart selling roasted chestnuts, and as the vendor turns, you notice the unmistakable sign behind him. Cleaned weekly, licensed rat patrol, number 3. It's official now. It's everywhere. Even chestnut vendors have rat patrols. And yet the rat remains a paradox reviled and admired in equal measure. You overhear a snippet of conversation between 2 women on the steps of a church. One shudders at the memory of finding droppings on her kitchen shelf. The other sighs and says, "Still they survive what we can't." That's something, isn't it? That contradiction runs deep. Because in some parts of Paris, the rat isn't just a nuisance, it's a delicacy. Yes, you heard that right. In the poorer quarters of the city, especially around the banks of the Bièvre River, rumors swirl about roasted rat stewed rat in garlic wine. Hunters who find particularly plump specimens sometimes pass them to underground cooks. Some say the meat tastes like rabbit. Others refuse to comment. Of course the city forbids this. The Health Council is very clear. Rats are not food. Rats are pestilence. Rats are not to be handled skinned, boiled, or flambéed. But rules mean little when hunger digs deeper than fear. And not everyone sees the rat as a villain. A fringe pamphlet appears one morning nailed to the doors of 3 wine shops and the entrance to the Paris Observatory. It's titled As Fuvig, in Defense of the Vermin, a Manifesto. Written anonymously, it argues that rats are the city's shadow citizens, managing waste-culling wheat crops and revealing the rot we refuse to acknowledge. We do not fear the rat, we fear what it shows us about ourselves. It becomes a talking point in salons. Some laugh, others nod solemnly. One duchess is rumored to have kept a pet rat in a silver cage named Voltaire. Whether that's true or not, it makes for a juicy rumor, and in Paris, that's practically fact. Meanwhile, the tension between symbolism and survival continues to play out on the streets. In a wealthier neighborhood near the Palais Royal, a theater troupe stages Les Petites Griffes, a comedy in which a family of rats inherits an aristocrat's estate. The satire is biting. The rats are played by children in gray velvet, and the audience eats it up figuratively, of course. But back in the Undercity, the real rats remain hungry. Licensed catchers report an uptick in burrow flocks. Dozens of rats moving in coordinated bursts through the edges of meat markets and grain depots. They move fast, raid faster, and vanish before brooms or boots can land a blow. One report includes a strange addendum: spotted a rat using a piece of wood as a ramp. You scoff, then you see the sketch crude but convincing. A rat mid-leap with what appears to be a stick angled beneath its paws like a bridge. Is it possible, historians argue still? Some believe rats mimic human behavior when food is involved. Others dismiss it as coincidence. But the catchers aren't dismissing anything anymore. They adapt in kind. New tools emerge. One is the churn trap. A rotating cylinder baited on one side with slick sides and a counterweight at the bottom. When the rat enters, the barrel spins. Dizziness ensues. Then capture. Margot improves the design by lining the interior with chalk dust to track motion patterns. It's less about catching and more about understanding. Delacour Ever the Philosopher writes a short essay titled Vermin and Virtue, a Study of Moral Infestation. In it, he proposes that Paris itself is a living organism, and rats are its fever unpleasant but diagnostic. He claims, to purge the rat is not to sanitize, but to confess. Whether it's metaphor madness or marketing it spreads. Suddenly, everyone is talking about rats not just as vermin, but as symbols. Artists sketch them, poets describe their teeth in loving detail, and even perfumers begin experimenting with urban musk scents, claiming to bottle the city's underbelly. One particularly strange moment, a rat ballet. Yes, an actual performance titled Danse des Ombres, performed in an underground theater with dancers in elaborate rodent masks. The finale features a soloist dressed as a plague doctor, slowly spinning arms outstretched as a paper rat scurries across the stage. You attend a showing, you leave confused, but moved. It's clear now the rat has entered the cultural bloodstream. No longer just a pest, it's a mirror, a muse, a menace. And yet the rat catcher still trudges through the alley, still wears his stained coat, still tightens the laces of his wooden boots. Because for all the philosophy and theater and perfume, rats don't disappear when you intellectualize them. They're still chewing through seed bags in the market, still stealing scraps from the baker's child, still nesting in the beams above your bed. So the hunters carry on. They learn new tactics. They use ground-up pearl dust as a repellent. They smear oils of horseradish and ash on door hinges. One even tries blowing panpipes, claiming it lulls the rats. Spoiler, it doesn't. But they're trying. Because the rat isn't just an animal anymore. It's a question. And every trap they set is a kind of answer. By the time you reach the Quai de la Râpée, the city is swathed in a damp gray quiet. The Seine gurgles, gently swollen with last night's rain, and the streets, still slick, reflect dim window lights like oil on glass. You pass a baker brushing rat droppings off his sill with a sigh, a child dragging a broom twice her size through the courtyard of an inn, and a washerwoman whispering a prayer before pouring lye into the gutter. Something has changed, not in the rats, in everyone else. You remember the stories they used to tell about how the Black Plague swept through Europe like a thief in the night, swift, silent, and merciless. Those stories had long faded into history books and fables. But in 18th century Paris, that old fear never fully vanished. It lingered like mildew behind the wallpaper, and now it's seeping out again, because the plague is back, not in full, not officially, but whispered, suggested, euphemized, wasting fevers, tainted air, the long cough. You hear the phrases spoken in clipped tones, always followed by glances over the shoulder. No one dares say plague. That would require action. But rat catchers know better. Licensed hunters report something new. Rats foaming at the mouth. Nests abandoned too soon. Entire blocks where rodents lie dead without visible injury. And in one chilling case, a catcher finds a pile of rats, neatly arranged in a ring around a pile of moldy bread. Delacour drafts an urgent memo. His handwriting is uneven. The ink blots. The heading reads, Signs of Recurrence, Protocol for Black Rot Indicators. He lists symptoms, animal and human. He calls for restraint, sanitation, and caution. The city council responds by doing nothing. Well, not nothing. They double street patrols. They silence Delacour's letter. They issue vague health proclamations urging increased ventilation and civic cleanliness. But not one official utters the word plague. Why? Because the plague is more than a disease. It's an accusation. It says your city is unclean, that your systems have failed, that your pride is built on rot. And Paris, always proud, isn't ready to face that. So the rat catchers are left to act in the shadows once more. History loops like a gnawed rope. They begin to work quietly at night, not just hunting, but watching. Logging rat behavior, noting when a nest goes dark, when a pack disperses, when the dogs refuse to enter a building. One catcher, Lefebvre, writes, They move differently now, not frantic, deliberate, as if they know we're watching, as if they want us to. That sentence gives you pause. There's an idea floating around in the darker corners of Paris, not spoken in daylight, only muttered over cheap wine and garlic broth in cellars with low ceilings. The rats are spreading it. Some say it aloud, some deny it, but deep down, everyone suspects. The strange thing is most of the original data pointing to rats as plague carriers is still hotly debated. Modern historians will tell you it was fleas, not rats, that ferried the plague, but in this version of Paris that nuance doesn't matter. The rat is the villain, the vessel, the visible threat, so the catchers adjust. They no longer just kill rats. They burn nests, boil traps, scrub boots with vinegar and lye. They wear gloves soaked in spirits and scarves laced with camphor. One even dons a homemade mask long-nosed like a beaked crow, stuffed with rose petals and pine resin. The look catches on. It's terrifying. It's theatrical. And it's effective. The scent does mask the rot. Some of the older women nod approvingly. Like in the old days, they whisper, before we forgot. You pass one house with a chalk mark on the door, a rat skull hastily drawn above the lintel. It means don't enter. Infection suspected. No one questions it, not even the priests. The church begins to act too quietly. Holy water is distributed by the bucket. Parishioners are told to pray, facing east, away from the wind. Candlelight processions are held. Rats, they say, are agents of spiritual decay. Sermons linger longer on metaphors of cleansing, of floods, of righteous fire. One monastery burns all its grain and survives on boiled roots for a month. No one there falls ill. Delacour, meanwhile, is unraveling. His notes grow more frantic. He sketches what he calls rat migration patterns, linking outbreaks to sudden rodent dispersals. He proposes that rats may sense illness before humans do. They flee it, he writes, but not out of fear, out of purpose. He begins pinning maps with black thread, connecting sightings, symptoms, and deaths. His room resembles a conspiracy board. He forgets to eat. He carries 2 lanterns at once, as if afraid of shadows doubling back on him. Others think he's lost it, but you're not so sure. Because you're starting to see it too. The way rats pause before they cross certain thresholds. How they scurry around specific houses. How they vanish entirely from whole quarters, just before someone inside falls ill. One catcher describes the moment he truly began to believe I caught one. Healthy, fat, but it didn't run. It just sat there, looked at me, then tipped over. He buried it with salt and rosemary, just in case. And so while the city pretends all is well, while the nobles plan their spring masquerades, and the salons discuss rodent poetry, the real war resumes beneath their feet. In the alleys, in the attics, in the cellars that still stink of centuries-old secrets. The plague never really left. It just waited, just like the rats. And the hunters, they hunt with urgency now. Not for coins, not for quotas, but because they understand something Paris refuses to admit. If the rats are running, you should be too. Night falls heavy over the Pont Saint-Michel, and you stand still beneath a flickering oil lamp, watching shadows dance along the stone arch. The city has quieted again, but not with peace, with tension. Every creak in the beams, every rustle of straw, every scratch behind the plaster feels louder now. You hear them. Not many, just enough. And then you see it, a lone rat, bold as a prince strutting across the parapet, nose twitching in the cool air. He stops, turns his head, looks directly at you, then vanishes behind a chimney pot. You could pretend it's nothing, but you know better now. Because by this point, the stories are no longer just about infestations. They've taken on an edge, something darker, more spectral. In hushed corners of taverns and between scribbled margins of private journals, people are whispering about things that go beyond rats. They're whispering about sewer spirits. It starts as all folk beliefs do with a single report. A rat catcher working near Les Halles hears a voice, a human voice, in perfect French. Leave them. The man turns. No one there. His torch flickers. The rat's gone. He tells no one, but he stops working nights. A week later, 2 children in the Latin Quarter claim they saw a glowing rat the size of a terrier with wings like a bat. Their mother blames the bakery fumes. Still, she hangs garlic above the hearth. Then the stories multiply. A hunter falls ill after discovering a bone-laden nest in the crypt of Saint-Jacques. The bones are arranged like ribs. In the center, a dried rose, its petals curled black. He begins dreaming of tunnels that breathe. He stops speaking, moves to the countryside, never catches again. Another hunter, an apprentice barely 16, returns from a job trembling, claims he saw a rat with human teeth. Won't elaborate. Delacour documents it all. His personal log becomes less of a scientific journal and more of a fever dream. He titles one entry, Threshold Phenomena. Are the sewers alive? He wonders aloud whether Paris's subterranean network, its tunnels, drains, burrows, has become more than infrastructure. Perhaps it has become aware. Historians later dismiss these notes as hysteria, but for the catchers living through it, it feels real. Because more and more the sewers seem to be responding. Not passively, but actively. Bricks shift. Water changes direction. Echoes bounce in unnatural rhythms. One hunter drops a coin and hears it land 4 times, before rolling back to him. Margot stops working below ground entirely. I'll chase them through the bakery, she says. Through the inn, through the tannery. But not down there. Not anymore. Why? Because she followed one once. A big one. Gray-white. Scar over the left eye. Into a tunnel near the Hôtel de Ville. She says it didn't run, it led her. Turned corners. Waited. Turned again. Until she found herself in a chamber she swore hadn't been there before. It smelled like honey and rot, she says, and I heard breathing. Not mine, not the rats. Something else. She fled. Delacour grows fascinated. Begins mapping anomalous chambers. Marks areas where compasses spin, where candles flicker sideways. He sketches what he calls unforgettable. The whisper line. A theoretical current that runs beneath the city, guiding rats and disorienting humans. He's no longer just a rat catcher. He's becoming something else. Others follow suit. A small sect of hunters begins carrying charms, bundles of dried herbs, teeth, silver coins marked with crosses. Not for rats, for what lives near them. One even crafts a little effigy, half rat, half man, with buttons for eyes, and a cinnamon stick through its chest. They don't speak of it often, but they carry it. The church begins taking more interest too. Several priests request permission to descend into known hotspots, to perform quiet blessings. They bring incense, holy salt. One returns pale and silent. Another never returns at all. The term asinchisa, sewer spirit, enters common use. What does it mean? A metaphor? A real presence? Maybe both. In this Paris, the line between myth and survival strategy is blurred and heavily scratched. Some believe the spirits are old ancient entities, awakened by the surge of death decay and whispered prayers for protection. Others think they are new, formed from the very rot of modernity, made strong by neglect and denial. One theory says they are memories, echoes of the plague, the famine, the forgotten bones buried in basement walls and bricked over wells. The rats, then, are merely messengers. You don't know what to believe. All you know is this something is changing. The rats move differently now, not just more intelligently, but more deliberately, as if performing tasks, patterns, loops. One catcher charts their nightly paths and realizes they're drawing a shape. He won't say what, just burns the map. The word ritual starts appearing in reports. Delacour insists it's all symbolic, psychological projection. We see what we fear, he writes, and what we fear most is being watched by something smaller than ourselves. But then he draws a spiral with 7 teeth around it, and he doesn't explain why. The public remains unaware. Surface life continues. Bread is baked. Bells ring. Lovers quarrel. But beneath it all, Paris is twitching, turning, curling like a rat's tail. One morning, you wake to find a black handprint on your door. You check for soot, ink, paint, but it's not on the door. It's in. It burned deep into the grain. You stare. You don't move. And from behind the wall, faint but unmistakable, you hear breathing. You leave the door untouched. Not out of bravery, not exactly. But because you've realized something important touching it would mean acknowledging it. And acknowledging it would make it real. That's the unspoken rule in Paris now. Everyone sees things, but no one speaks them. That's how you stay sane. That's how you stay safe. But you're starting to question what that really means. Because today you're meeting someone who doesn't bother hiding anymore. Her name is Colette. She's maybe 50, maybe 80. It's hard to say under the layers of shawls and soot. She lives in an attic that leans precariously above a lamp oil shop in the 5th arrondissement. No one speaks to her directly. Children leave bundles of herbs on her steps. Hunters nod to her, but don't linger. They call her the barefoot rat woman. You climb the rickety stairs with care. No railing, no doorbell. Just a string of bones that jingle when you brush them aside. She opens the door before you knock. You're late, she says. Her voice is soft, like dust. Inside the room is warm, unnaturally so. Herbs hang from the rafters. Skins dry above the stove. Jars line the shelves, some filled with feathers, some with teeth. You try not to look too long at the one that seems to be breathing. Colette pours tea. It tastes of burnt sage and something floral. You drink anyway. She doesn't ask why you're here. She knows. You want to know what lives down there, she says, nodding toward the floor. You nod back. She smiles sadly, same as always. Women, men, and the things no one wants to admit exist. Colette wasn't always a rat hunter. She started as a washerwoman, then a midwife. Then, something changed. She doesn't say what. But she learned quickly that the best way to go unseen in Paris was to wear the uniform of the invisible bare-feet silence and a basket of rags. That's how she caught them. She didn't use traps or poison. She used lullabies. She hums one now slow, winding the kind of tune that sounds like it's missing notes. It creeps along your spine like cold wine. She says rats freeze when they hear it. They remember it. Something old, older than Paris. You don't ask how she knows. Instead, you listen as she explains her method. She walks barefoot so the stones can speak to her. She follows heat trails with her elbows. She senses nests by taste, yes, taste. The air changes, she says. Tastes like pennies when the rats are near. Is it madness? Maybe. But she's never been bitten. Not once. She's caught hundreds. And some say she's never caught a normal one. Only the strange ones, the pale ones, the silent ones, the ones that arrive dead with no cause and vanish if not watched. She leads you to her back room. It's dark, candlelit. In the center, a rat skeleton perfectly clean, mounted upright like a miniature statue. Its ribs are tied with red thread. Its jaw is slightly open. His name was Théophile, she says. He found me when I was bleeding. She doesn't elaborate. You don't ask. On the wall hangs a map of Paris, hand-drawn burned at the edges. She's marked tunnels, nests, sightings. But her map includes places you've never heard of. Places beneath the maps you know. She points to a symbol near the old abbey. They gather here, she says. The women who never wore shoes. The girls who disappeared. She means the forgotten. The invisible. The unrecorded poor. Women who lived in Corner's history, never bothered to illuminate. And according to Colette, some of them still live down there. Or something wearing their shape does. She tells you about one named Delphine. She was 14, taken by fever, buried in a shallow grave. The rats found her. But instead of devouring her, they listened. She returned weeks later changed. Her eyes were wrong. Her smile didn't end. She never blinked again. Colette met her once, gave her a red scarf, said she looked cold. Delphine still wears it, they say, down there, near the rusted well where rats won't go. These aren't just ghost stories, they're field notes. Hunters whisper about the barefoot ones, figures seen in peripheral vision. Silent girls with empty eyes appearing only where infestations are worst. Sometimes right before they spread, sometimes after. They walk among the rats, or lead them, and always barefoot. One hunter claims to have followed one down an alley. When he turned the corner, she was gone. Just a ring of rat tracks around a fresh set of small human footprints. Colette nods when you tell her this. They remember her, she says. The city forgot. The rats didn't. You realize what she's saying. For her, the rat isn't the enemy. It's the memory. The only thing keeping certain histories alive. You leave her home just as the moon rises over the city, pale and fat as a jawbone. You feel changed. Not frightened exactly. But aware. You watch the gutters, the alley mouths, the spaces between. You listen for breathing. You look for bare feet. And as you turn the last corner toward your lodging, you step carefully, because you're starting to believe something you never would have just 10 days ago. The rat isn't the only thing hiding in the walls. The next day arrives, muted overcast the sky the color of lye soap. The kind of day that seems to sap color from buildings and courage from men. You pass a milk cart stuck in a rut, its wheels sunken into mud that smells faintly wrong. Not manure, not sewage. Something older. You keep walking. Your destination is a tenement near Rue Saint-Denis, 3 stories tall and already listing like a half-sunk ship. Most of the residents have moved out. Those who remain have one thing in common. They're poor, exhausted, and surrounded by rats. And this morning they've called a licensed hunter. He's already at work when you arrive. Not Delacour, not Girard, not Margot. This one's new or new to you. He wears no coat. Just a heavy apron stained dark with oil and blood. His sleeves are rolled. His beard is short and square. No flair. No songs. Just a crate of tools. A coil of rope and the sour scent of ammonia trailing him like a ghost. His name is Armand, and he doesn't talk much. Instead, he gestures. You follow him up a crumbling staircase into a room where the smell hits like a blow-wet rot and scorched hair. The floorboards bend underfoot. In the far corner, a hole has been chewed clean through the plaster. A nest. You expect rats. What you see is worse. A ring of bones. Tiny. Arranged deliberately. A single apple core in the center untouched. On the wall, scratch marks in a vertical pattern as if something had been climbing. it repeatedly. Armand squats beside the nest, doesn't touch it, just observes. Then, with careful movements, he lights a stick of sulfur and places it gently at the nest's edge. Within seconds, shapes scatter. Not many, but large, too large. You look at him. He nods once. Third one this week. He doesn't elaborate, but later in the courtyard he finally speaks. They're not scared of us anymore, he says. They're not even trying to hide. You ask if he's talking about the rats. He doesn't answer. What he does share is routine, what a day in the life of a licensed hunter actually looks like now. It begins early, before the city stirs. Traps are checked, lures reset. Poisons mixed. Maps reviewed. Coffee is optional. Oilskin gloves are not. Requests come in from taverns, shops, bakeries, and increasingly private homes, especially those of the wealthy. Funny how the nobles who once mocked the hunters now tip heavily and won't let them leave without a prayer. Each location is its own story. A chocolatier's pantry with bite marks in a perfect circle. A seamstress's closet filled with shredded lace and paw prints on the mirror. A fishmonger's stall where the eels are being stolen. Not eaten. Taken. Armand once caught a rat dragging a baby eel across a rooftop by its tail. Bold little bastard, he mutters. Didn't even drop it when I shouted. The gear has changed too. More gloves, thicker boots. A few wear padded trousers. Several now use dog oil, rendered fat rubbed into belts and boot seams to keep rodents from chewing through. It works, mostly. Pay varies. By district. By risk. By number of tails produced. Some catchers sew extra tails together. Others bring witnesses. One hunter carries a ledger signed by priests. You ask if he's ever refused a job. Once he says, a cellar in Montorgueil, too quiet, too clean, and the floor, it pulsed. He doesn't elaborate. There's a superstition now among hunters. If a place is too clean, it's already been claimed. Not by a person, by something else, something that keeps it clean, for reasons no one dares to understand. So most prefer the filth. Filth means life. Filth means normal. Filth means rats. And rats. Rats at least follow rules. Armand continues his circuit. The tenants watch him pass like a priest. They cross themselves. One hands him a pouch of lavender. Another places an onion in the doorway to absorb bad things. He accepts both without comment. You follow him through 3 more flats. One has a mattress chewed clean through. The stuffing is gone. Not scattered, gone. Another has rat prints circling a crucifix nailed above a bed. And the third just has a sound, constant clicking. No source. By the end of the day, Armand is silent again. He wipes his tools, cleans his apron, pours hot wine into a tin cup and leans against a wall in the alley. You ask him what keeps him doing it. He shrugs. Then he says, someone has to remind them we're still watching. Not kill, not clean. Remind. Because he, like the others, understands now the rats are more than a problem. They are present. A force. A pressure beneath the skin of the city. They push. You push back. But it's never about winning. It's about keeping the line from moving too far. You part ways as dusk bleeds into night. The lamps come on flickering in windows. Doors bolt. Curtains draw. You hear a squeak behind you and turn half expecting to see a rat. But it's a cat. One of the strays. Lean, yellow-eyed, and twitchy. She hisses. Not at you. At the wall behind you. You don't look. You walk on. And that night before you sleep, you place a coin in each corner of your room and whisper 3 words. We see you, just in case. You wake to bells low, heavy, and too many of them. Not the cheerful toll of church hours, but the off-kilter ringing of panic cloaked in formality. From your garret window, you see smoke curling above the rooftops. Not fire, just incense. A funeral procession passes quietly beneath. 2 coffins. 3 priests. No mourners. Plague rumors again. By now, you've stopped counting how many times the city has danced with denial. You dress slowly the way you do when you're no longer sure what the day will ask of you. Outside, the air tastes like boiled rags and wet metal. A poor sign. You head toward the Parvis Notre Dame, where a new proclamation has been posted. You expect health codes, maybe new rat control ordinances. What you don't expect is the seal of both the crown and the church at the top. A rare thing. The document reads, In times of contagion and pestilence, a united response. What follows is a strange hybrid of theology science and political theater. It recognizes the recurring affliction of fever, though it avoids the word plague. It authorizes increased vermin surveillance. It proposes collaboration between the clergy city watch and licensed rat hunters. And in an especially bold twist, it declares a new title, Protector of Sanitary Order. Only one name is listed beneath it, Guillaume Delacour. You blink, Delacour the scribbler, the pamphleteer, the man once mocked for drawing rat migration maps with string and ink, now backed by both pulpit and power. It's a dramatic shift, and not without resistance. You hear it almost immediately in the taverns. The man talks to walls, one merchant scoffs. Next, he'll be knighting cats. But beneath the sneers is something else anxiety, because even the doubters know something is wrong. And Delacour, for all his quirks, has plans. Big ones. The first A census, not just of rats, but of homes. He wants data which houses report infestations, which neighborhoods experience sickness first, which districts the rats avoid entirely. Some cry foul. What next inspections of our laundry? But others comply. Because the rats aren't just in the walls anymore. They're in the churches. The first incident is dismissed as coincidence, a single rat scampering across the transept during a sermon. But the second, that one shakes people. Mass at Saint Nicolas des Champs. A priest mid-sermon. A scratching sound. Then a thud. A rat, enormous, falls from the rafters, dead before it hits the stone. Rigor mortis already set. Jaw frozen open in what some swear looked like a grin. After that, it gets harder to ignore. Nuns find rat nests in confessionals. Choir boys complain of scratches at their feet. One altar cloth is discovered chewed through in a perfect circle, centered on the image of Saint Sebastian. The church moves fast. Incense becomes mandatory at all services. Priests carry staffs again, not just symbols now, but tools. Holy water is splashed liberally. Relics are moved. Chapels scrubbed. But the rats don't retreat. In fact, they seem drawn to the sacred. Delacour offers a theory. He always does. The church, he writes, is not just a sanctuary. It is heat bread, incense, soft wood. It is shelter. To a rat, holiness smells like comfort. It's meant to calm. It doesn't. So the clergy begin reaching out to the licensed hunters. Quietly, carefully. They form unofficial teams, rat catchers accompanied by young priests with satchels of herbs and verses ready on their lips. These are not exorcists, not yet, but they are something new, agents of both body and soul. They move quietly at dusk through rectories and vestries and hollowed-out bell towers. One group discovers a tunnel beneath the apse at Saint-Sulpice, an old one lined with teeth. Human teeth. They reseal it. No one speaks of it again. Meanwhile, nobles begin to notice. The Comte de Vaucluse has his entire ballroom floor torn up after guests report soft spots beneath the parquet. They find 4 rats and a shoe, still tied. No foot. He hires 5 hunters on retainer, pays them double. The aristocracy, once disdainful, is now simply afraid. Their ballads are quieter. Their homes smell like lime wash. Some refuse to host guests. One duchess insists all her footmen carry lanterns inside the house, and yet the rats persist. In an unprecedented move, the Archbishop of Paris invites Delacour to speak at the pulpit on public health. The event is sparsely attended, half out of curiosity, half out of dread. Delacour's speech is simple, calm, and devastating. We are not at war with the rat. We are in conversation with it. And it is asking, what have you left behind? The room is silent. A woman faints. Someone coughs and 3 people leave. But the message lands. Delacour issues new directives. More public washings. Mandatory drain inspections. A registry of rat-free zones. A push for reinforced cellar doors. For the first time in memory, the city of Paris moves together. Nobles, priests, catchers, commoners, all responding to a single shared pressure. But the rats? They respond too. Reports emerge of them moving in pairs, of them chewing through stone. One hunter swears he saw them using bones as tools. No one believes him, not entirely. Yet, when he disappears 2 nights later, his traps all left open, they don't mock him either. And then, perhaps strangest of all, a rumor spreads. In the crypt beneath a forgotten chapel near the outskirts of the city, someone claims to have found writing. Not graffiti, not carvings, scratches, dozens of them. Long lines, spirals, patterns, all in rat-sized strokes. One priest faints trying to translate them. Another swears it's Latin. A third says no, older. Delacour dispatches a team. Only 2 return. They say nothing, but they burn their clothes. And they never speak of it again. That night you hear rats above your ceiling, not running. Sing! The scratching doesn't stop. Not tonight. Not anymore. It's rhythmic now, deliberate like footsteps above your head. 1, 2, pause. 1, 2, pause. You lie perfectly still, not from fear exactly, but from something colder. A knowing. The realization that you're being measured. But in the morning, nothing's disturbed. No droppings, no nests, not even dust out of place. Whatever it was, it didn't come to chew. It came to listen, and maybe to count. You rise early, drawn to the south bank, where rumors of a new infestation have surfaced, not in the slums, but in the perfumed halls of the Tuileries Palace itself. Yes, even the palace. Apparently 2 courtiers fainted during a dinner when a rat calmly walked across the rim of the soup tureen. No one screamed. No one moved. The rat simply stood there twitching its nose, then stepped down daintily and vanished beneath a curtain embroidered with lilies. Afterward, the queen insisted it had been a hallucination, a shared illusion. Something stirred up by the wine. But 2 guards resigned the next morning. Word spreads quickly, the rat wall has crumbled. For centuries, Paris operated under the illusion that wealth could insulate you, that filth and fear obeyed social order. But now the rats are ignoring the rules. Delacour calls it the collapse of scent lines. He explains in a paper titled, with unnerving bluntness, when rats refuse boundaries, that rats historically avoided certain perfumes cleaners and light thresholds, but lately those lines have meant nothing. One hunter finds a nest inside a silk trunk. Another finds one under a bishop's bath. One nobleman distraught fires his entire household staff, blaming them for inviting the creatures in with base thoughts. Delacour is summoned for an emergency council with both church and crown. He arrives wearing his hunting coat. Doesn't bother to change. They demand answers. What's happening? Is this spiritual? Is this biological? Is this punishment? He simply replies, "It is consequence." They don't like that. He is dismissed politely, escorted out less politely. But his words take root. Because now, everyone has a rat story. Not just a sighting, an incident. The duchess who woke to one sitting on her pillow. The magistrate who found rat teeth arranged in a circle on his windowsill. The orphan who insists her brother speaks to them in dreams. And through it all, the rat catchers work. Relentlessly. But they're tired now. You can see it in their eyes. The bags beneath them. The twitching hands. The way some speak less, and some speak too much. They're no longer just workers. They're witnesses. You meet Margot near a wine cellar in the Faubourg. She's paler than usual, dressed in red. "I don't wear gloves anymore," she says. "I want to feel it when I touch them." You don't ask what it is. Instead, she shows you her latest catch-a-rat with fur the color of ash and one milky eye. Its mouth is frozen open, and inside, tucked neatly beneath the tongue, is a kernel of wheat. "That's the 3rd one this week," she whispers. All with something in the mouth. Theories spread quickly. Some say it's an offering. Some say it's a warning. Some say it's nothing at all, just a rat who choked. But no one really believes that anymore. You begin hearing phrases that sound more like prayers. If they leave it, don't touch it. If it stares, don't blink. If it smiles, run. That last one comes from Colette. You visit her again. She's been drawing endless pages each with a single figure in different poses. A woman barefoot, always facing away. Always surrounded by rats. She's moving, Colette murmurs. She's not hiding anymore. "You ask who?" She doesn't answer. Just gives you one of the pages and says, "Keep this by your bed." You do. That night the scratching skips. The rhythm breaks. Then stops. You sleep better than you have in weeks, but the city doesn't. The next morning, posters appear not from the government, not from the church, but from within the licensed hunter guilds. Handwritten. Pinned to trees, nailed to doors, tied to lampposts. Each reads the same. They're not just in the walls anymore. No explanation, no signature. Just a symbol at the bottom, a spiral of tiny inked dots. You recognize it from Delacour's map. The press tries to mock it. Pamphlets are printed with satirical cartoons, rats in wigs, rats preaching sermons, rats opening shops. But the laughter doesn't echo quite like before, because for every joke, someone has a nightmare. One man jumps into the Seine after a rat winked at him. A woman in Montmartre refuses to walk inside her own house after finding a paw print on her mirror. A priest begins burning every book in his chapel that contains the word pestilence. He says the letters rearranged themselves when he wasn't looking. You no longer bother to explain these things away. You just notice the new silence that wraps the city like wool, soft, cloying, and heavy. People speak in half sentences. Candles are left burning longer. Doors are bolted from both sides. And the rats. They watch. They walk without rushing. They leave things behind. And sometimes just for a moment they smile. It rains for 3 days straight. Not a storm, not a thunderous deluge, just a quiet, steady drizzle that soaks everything without pause. The kind of rain that gets into your bones, turns the cobbles into slick traps, and coaxes mold from corners you forgot existed. Paris softens, blurs, smells like wet paper and old teeth. You move through the city like a ghost. So does everyone else. The catchers, now nearly uniformed in appearance, long coats, smeared boots, and faces lined with sleeplessness, have stopped working in pairs. They work in 3s, sometimes 4s. No one says why. They just know it's safer that way. Because lately it isn't just the rats acting strange, it's the city itself. Bridges creak even when no one crosses. Drains whistle at night, tuneless and shrill. Stone walls sweat. More than one hunter reports rooms they swear have moved. Floor plans that shift. Stairwells that double back into basements that weren't there before. One says he walked into a wine cellar and came out into a crypt. Another, more seasoned, says simply, don't trust your second step. Even the rats seem disoriented. Some are found circling endlessly, spinning in place until collapse. Others lie still, eyes wide, breathing shallow as if they've seen something they'll never recover from. And then there's the scratching. It's no longer behind walls. It's within them. That's the only way to describe it. A vibration, a pulse, a tick, tick, tick from inside the bricks themselves. Not rats, not mice. The very structure of the city murmuring to itself. Delacour still in his post, despite growing opposition issues, a new decree. No catcher shall work alone in enclosed spaces. It's dismissed by many as paranoia, but not all, especially not those who've heard the echo. The echo begins quietly, barely there. You drop a trap and it responds. A slight tap like someone beneath your feet answering back. You cough. It coughs. You step. It steps. It always matches. Never leads. Never follows. Just mirrors. It's enough to make you wonder if the walls themselves are watching. You visit Delacour, now quartered in a makeshift office within the abandoned Hôtel de Sens. The former library has been stripped of books, replaced with scrolls of parchment ink maps, and bones. Yes, bones. Catalogued. Labeled. Some rat. Some not. He offers you no pleasantries. Just points at a long chart. It shows a timeline of infestation patterns, bursts, absences, returns. But what strikes you is the interruption. There's a stretch of 3 weeks in which rats seemingly vanished from 3 districts. No traps triggered, he mutters. No waste disturbed. Not a single tail found. Then they returned. And when they did, they brought things. He opens a drawer. Inside, small tokens wrapped in muslin. A silver ring. A child's tooth. A page from a Bible with every 3rd word scratched out. A mouse skull pierced with a thorn. Offerings, warnings. He doesn't say. Just closes the drawer and says, they're learning in bursts now. Like dreams. That phrase sits heavy in the air. Outside, the rain continues. You pass 3 catchers huddled under a canopy, muttering about a new symbol. They've seen it scratched into the stones near nests. A spiral, yes, but broken this time. Fragmented. It wasn't there last night, one says. You ask if Delacour knows. He isn't looking anymore, the youngest whispers. You pause. Apparently, he's changed. No more field work. No more briefings. He's become quieter. More internal. Some say he's trying to speak to them now, not metaphorically. Literally. They say he's building something. You don't press. Later at the riverside, you see the water swell. Debris floats twigs, feathers pages torn from a child's reader. And bodies. Not human, not fully rat. Something in between. You blink, they're gone. You aren't sure if they were ever there. One of the priests from St. Paul speaks to you, quietly, frightened. They've stopped running from holy ground. That's not supposed to happen. The cathedral bells ring 3 times at midnight now. No reason, no explanation, just tolls. The notes warble strangely. Children are being kept indoors. Not because of illness, because they're whispering. Some repeat words they couldn't possibly know. Some draw spirals. Some leave food in 3s by the hearth and say, "It's polite." One girl is found sleepwalking into the wall, her nose broken, her knuckles bloodied. But when she wakes, she just says, "They were calling." And yet, no one has seen a large-scale infestation in days. No swarms, no plague-ridden mobs, just the feeling that something is gathering. No droppings, no tunnels, but teeth marks everywhere. On books, on chair legs, on the rims of plates. Tiny, deliberate, repeating. It's as if they're writing. And when you finally return home that evening, wet and trembling, you open your cupboard to find a rat trap untouched, but beside it is a tooth, standing upright, balanced. And when you shut the door again very softly, you feel the wall press back. Just a little, just enough to say, "Yes, we're still here." You no longer sleep without a candle lit. Not for illumination, really. It doesn't chase the shadows. It simply reminds you that something warm and human still lives in the room. The flicker calms you at least, until the wax pools, the wick curls into itself, and the flame gutters out. And then you hear it again, the soft press of silence thickening. The sound of something holding its breath just outside the corner of your hearing. You rise before dawn. Not because of duty, because the dream you just had told you to. It didn't use words. Just images. Spirals carved into skin, a rat blinking with human eyes, and Paris seen from below pulsing like a heart. You dress. You go to Delacour. You knock. No answer. The Hotel de Sens is locked. Not barred. Not shuttered. Just quiet. Too quiet. The door yields under pressure. You step inside and find it empty. Not abandoned, cleared. The papers are gone. The bones are gone. The jars, the sketches, the map boards all vanished. Only one thing remains, a sheet of parchment on the wall, pinned with a broken rat trap. On it, written in Delacour's hand, "Don't follow them. They want to be seen now." No one has seen him since. The guild is shaken. Some whisper that he's dead. Others think he's become something else. Too close, Armand mutters. You chase the wall long enough it chases back. Margot is even more direct. He went looking for their language. Maybe they taught him. But the catchers carry on. They have no choice, because something is building beneath the city. Not a movement. Not a swarm. A structure. New tunnels have appeared too clean, too symmetrical to be natural. Straight lines. Angled walls. Cross-sections. Armand and 2 others find one beneath a boarding house. They enter for 40 seconds. They leave and don't speak for 3 days. The only word Armand says later is engineered. The rats haven't swarmed in weeks, but the city feels heavier, like it's leaning inward. The church organizes another procession, this time in complete silence. No candles, no incense. Just people walking in rows of 3 barefoot eyes cast downward. Even the cardinals participate. The Pope sends a letter. It burns before it arrives. Rumor, but still. You walk the northern quarter at dusk. It's raining again, soft, constant. Your boots leave no echo. A group of children play in the mud, their faces blank. They're drawing something. You look closer. Rows of dots, spirals, teeth. You ask what it means. One of them looks up and says it's the shape that watches. That night, 3 hunters disappear. They'd been following a new trail crumbs, leading into the subcellars beneath an abandoned convent. Their dogs returned. The men didn't. The dogs haven't barked since. Armand forms a recovery team. 7 men. Salt. Vinegar. Candles. No weapons, they don't help anymore. They return at dawn. No bodies. Just a note scrawled in soot on the stone wall. "We gave back what you took. It's signed with a spiral and 3 scratch marks. The guild is now divided. Half believe the rats are evolving. The other half thinks something older, something buried, is using them. Colette has stopped answering the door. You leave a bundle of lavender anyway. Then you head to Margot's. She greets you with a bowl of stew and 3 matches crossed in the window. A ward. We're past killing now, she says. It's not about numbers. It's about proximity. You ask what that means. She points to her trap wall. 40 cages, all empty, for weeks. They're watching the idea of the trap, she says. Not the bait, not the snap, the shape of it. She says it like a poet, but she means it literally. The rats have begun avoiding symbols, not substances, not poisons. Concepts. They don't enter rooms with crossed lines. They turn away from reflections. One catcher paints a decoy door on a cellar wall. The rats pile up in front of it, unable or unwilling to go further. You visit the cathedral. The bell tower is shut now. The crypts are locked. But on the main altar, there's a new statue. Unlabeled. Just present. It's tall. Thin. Almost human. But not quite. Its feet are bare. And its eyes. 2 small stones. Rodent-shaped. Some say it was delivered in the night. Others think it was always there. You don't look at it long. Instead, you return home and find your bed undisturbed, your traps untouched, your candle still burning. But on your desk is a single whisker, curled, pale, balanced perfectly on the page of your journal where you'd once written weeks ago. Are they thinking? You don't touch it. You close the book. And from somewhere beyond the shutters, a sound rises. Not scratching, not squealing. A voice, low, measured, familiar. It says you're almost ready. You don't remember falling asleep, but you wake with dirt under your nails, the kind of dirt that smells of basement's lime and something older. It cakes the edge of your sleeves. There's a smear on your cheek. You wash it off slow and silent, pretending the water carries it all away. You lie to yourself, just long enough to make breakfast. Then you find the note. Folded neat, placed precisely on your table under a stone, round, smooth black. A rat skull etched on one side. The note is unsigned, but the handwriting is unmistakable. The spiral opens tonight. No address, no time, no name, just that. You crumple it, throw it away, take it back out, and smooth it flat again. And you go. Of course you do, because you know exactly where it means. The spiral. Capitalized now, even in your thoughts. It's no longer just a pattern. It's a place, not on any map, but drawn in whispers across the city's nervous system. A convergence point, the center of sightings, silences, and disappearances. Hunters speak of it the way sailors speak of sea monsters. With awe, with fear, with an ache that it might be real. You follow the signs: a dead rat laid nose first on Rue des Ursins, a chalk line curved at the edge of the market square, a door in the wrong wall. The entrance is where it always is and never is, beneath the butcher's guild hall, behind a wall that smells like cinnamon and smoke. You descend. The air changes. At first it's just cooler, then thicker, then textured. You can feel it against your skin brushing like breath. Your boots hit stone, not cobbles. Carved stone. Symbols beneath your feet. Spirals, teeth, eyes. Open, watching. You are not the first here. You see them, dozens, standing in silence. The licensed hunters, the fringe believers, the barefoot watchers. Margot, Armand, even 2 clergy, each holding something small. A token, a tool, an offering. You look down at your own hand. There's nothing in it, but in your coat pocket, the whisker. You take it out. It glows faintly in the torchlight, pale as moon silk. You step forward. The chamber is round. Walls close, then stretch away the more you stare. The ceiling is too high, or too low. You can't tell anymore. In the center, a shape. It might be a nest. It might be a throne. It might be a door. Rats line the edges, thousands. Silent. Still. Eyes glittering like polished obsidian. Not afraid. Not aggressive. Waiting. And then movement. Not from them. From the wall. It peels. Breathes. Folds outward. Something steps through. And it isn't a rat. It isn't human either. It's tall. wrapped in a patchwork cloak of fur and parchment, feet bare, fingers long, skin the color of wax paper and rain, its face hidden behind a mask, rat-shaped, human-eyed. It holds no weapon. It holds a mirror, small, oval, cracked. It lifts it slowly and tilts it toward you, and what you see inside. You, but not you, taller, still, calm, dressed in shadow and salt. Watching yourself, and behind your reflection rats, walking behind you, not chasing, not fleeing, following. The figure speaks. Its voice is many voices, low and wet like sound spoken from a mouth filled with earth. You've named us, feared us, fed us. You've burned our homes and we returned. You built walls. We learned to live within them. You trapped us. We turned the trap into scripture. Now you are ready. The room doesn't move, but your understanding does. The catchers kneel, even Margot, even Armand. You don't. You can't, because something in you is shifting, rewiring. A hum in your teeth, a whisper under your fingernails. You look down at the whisker. It curls into a spiral on its own, and the figure says, "The city is more than stone. We are more than teeth. The plague was never ours. It was your silence made manifest. Now let the city remember." The mirror shatters, not loudly, like ice breaking underwater. You blink. You're standing outside. Daylight, early, market carts, bells. Your boots are clean, your hands empty, and in your pocket nothing. No whisker, no stone, just a slip of parchment. You saw it, that's enough. But on the wall beside you, a spiral drawn in soot. Turning, always turning. The days that follow unfold like dreams half remembered. Paris continues on the surface. Bread is baked bells are rung horses, clip-clop down the boulevards as if nothing has changed. But beneath it all, there's a tremble. A texture to the silence. The sense that someone is always just about to speak, but doesn't. The rats are quiet too. Too quiet. The traps remain undisturbed. The grain sacks lie untouched. The cellars are still. But everyone feels them. In the breath between heartbeats. In the chill when you step from shadow into light. The hunters begin to vanish. Not all, just some, one by one. Margot is last seen at dawn, kneeling before the cathedral steps, her gloves neatly folded beside her. No sign of struggle. No farewell. Colette's window hangs open for 3 days. The herbs above her threshold wilt. The neighborhood goes silent. Armand leaves a note. It's not that they won. It's that we finally heard. Even the church grows still. Processions cease. Incense runs out. The last few holy men do not preach, they listen. They wait. And Delacour no word. Only stories. Some say he walks the tunnels barefoot now, eyes glazed, whispering names long lost to census books. Others say he never existed at all. That his title, his writings, his maps were left behind like a myth that had to be believed in order for the city to wake up. You still have the spiral, not the whisker, not the stone, but the shape, burned into memory, echoed in puddles, drawn by children etched into door frames. It's become something Paris recognizes, even if it doesn't understand. You take long walks now, not through alleys, but above, the rooftops. You want to see the city's skin from above its bones. It's quieter there, clearer. One evening you see them, tiny clusters of people standing in circles, silent, facing inward, holding nothing. And beside them, rats, not swarming, not hiding, just present. Some on shoulders, some curled in pockets, some watching heads tilted slightly, as if listening. To what? A call, a signal, a memory reawakened. You try asking once. A boy with soot on his chin looks up and says, "We're just waiting for the next shape." You don't know what that means, but you stop asking after that. More buildings are left open at night, doors unlatched, bread left near thresholds, sometimes a bowl of milk, an old rite half recalled. It's not worship, it's not surrender, it's respect. The city has learned its place. The guild of rat catchers quietly dissolves, not out of defeat, but fulfillment. Their role, their purpose, their war, complete. Not because the rats are gone, but because the need to fight has gone silent. Delacour once wrote, "To understand the rat is to understand Paris. Not the city we show, but the one we hide from ourselves. And if we stop hiding, they stop running." You visit the archive one last time. The spirals etched into the wood of the desk. A message maybe, a seal. You light a candle, not to see, to remember. And on the walk home, you notice something strange. You no longer flinch at the sound behind you, because there is no fear now, only recognition. And when you open your door just before the latch clicks, you whisper, "Good evening." No answer comes, but you know they heard. The city has entered a new kind of quiet. Not the silence of death, not the eerie hush that follows sickness or fire. No, this is the silence of alignment. Like a clock finally wound, a machine humming softly in its resting state. You notice it first in the streets. Fewer accidents, fewer arguments. The bread arrives early, and no one steps out of turn to grab the first loaf. The shopkeepers nod without words. The children, though still playing, are more deliberate. They draw spirals in chalk, not out of whim, but with purpose. One child draws one on the bakery wall and steps aside. No explanation. Later that night, the baker finds no mice in the flour room for the first time in 20 years. He hangs a ribbon there the next morning, white, unmarked. You know what it means. The spiral is not a warning anymore. It's a boundary, a threshold, an invitation to be left alone. Across the city they appear, drawn in soot, etched into wood, scraped into frost. Some are broken, misshapen. Those don't last long. Something corrects them overnight. And people let them. Because the rats, they've changed too. They move openly now. But not wildly, not in mobs, not in hunger. They pass through alleys with calm precision. They pause at windows, glance toward doorways, then continue on. Always in arcs. Always with space between them like dancers in some invisible choreography. One sits on the lap of a statue near the Sorbonne. It doesn't move for hours. People walk around it. No one disturbs it. Not even the pigeons. The priests, once frantic, now merely nod. They walk the aisles of empty chapels, lighting candles in threes. No sermons. Just presence. And at night, the bells ring once, not 3, just once, as if to say, we're still here. The hunters, they've taken new roles, no longer exterminators, now observers, custodians of the spiral. Some call them keepers, others listeners. Their tools remain, but they hang them differently now, not from belts, but across their chests, like relics, not used, just remembered. Armand returns only once. He stands outside the Hotel de Sens, looks up at the boarded windows, then lights a small oil lamp and walks into the fog. No one follows. Margot is seen on the edge of Montparnasse barefoot, drawing shapes in salt. She smiles at a child who brings her bread and leaves a single rat tooth in return. The church no longer blesses houses with words. They scatter corn in spirals. Some find it pagan. Most find it peaceful. And you begin to write. Not in books. In corners, in lines, in small circles, not for others, for them, because you know now what the spiral means. It's not a warning. It's a bridge, a soft geometry of coexistence, an architecture of allowance, a promise. We see each other now, and we remember how easily forgetting begins. The city is not healed, but it is awake. And when night falls, always gently now, you light your candle, you lock your door, and you place a single crumb beneath your floorboard. Not out of fear. Out of habit, out of respect, and in return the walls stay still, except for once, just once, when you hear the soft scrape of claws, and a voice thin-high, familiar whispers. Tomorrow the spiral turns again. You awaken to stillness, not silence, not absence, stillness. That careful, deliberate pause the world sometimes takes when it's deciding whether to end or begin again. You rise without rush. The candle is still burning low, a stub now, its wax folded into itself like a closing eye. You let it gutter out. Outside the sky is colorless, and the city is waiting, not for disaster, not for change, for confirmation. You step into the street, and Paris meets you like an old friend who remembers everything you tried to forget. The cobblestones are damp, the gutters empty. The windows do not twitch. Doors do not slam. Pigeons perch quietly unmoved by your footsteps. A girl walks past you barefoot, holding a spiral drawn on parchment. She does not speak, but you know she has somewhere to go. Everyone does now, because something in the rhythm of the city has completed its circuit. The rats are no longer a problem. They are a presence, one you can see if you squint at the corner of your eye in low light. One you can hear if you stop pretending you're the only thing breathing in the room. You pass by the butcher's square. No squeals, no scurrying. Just a rat sitting beneath a bench grooming itself with perfect calm. You nod to it. It blinks, and you move on. There are no more catchers, only watchers. You pass former hunters along your way. Some now serve tea in alley stalls. Others keep notebooks full of symbols and sightings. No one talks of extermination. Only alignment, balance. The church still rings its single bell. The nobles still sleep behind gilded shutters. But everyone knows. They've seen the spiral too many times. They've stopped erasing it. They add to it now. The spirals appear not just on walls, but in embroidery, in patterns of bricks, in the sugar atop pastries. As though Paris has decided in its own quiet pride to incorporate what it once rejected. In doing so, it breathes easier. You walk the final street slowly. Delacour's map flashes behind your eyes, fractals of connection loops of absence, the architecture of something not meant to be fought, but joined. You remember the figure with the rat mask, the cracked mirror, the reflection that wasn't you, but wasn't not you either. It lingers, because it wasn't a warning. It was an invitation, and you accepted. You find yourself at the mouth of the tunnel again, the old one, near the guild hall. But there is no spiral scratched into the stone this time. Instead, how a circle, closed, whole. You don't enter. You don't need to. The work is done. Not finished. Never finished. But no longer frantic. No longer reaction. Now understanding. And as you turn to leave, a small shape curls at the edge of your boot. A rat. Unmoving. Watching. You meet its gaze. You do not blink. It stands on its hind legs. Turns. And vanishes into the mist. Not scared. Not hunted. Home. And you walk the rest of the way with a quiet truth in your bones. The rats are not gone, but neither are we. And for now, for tonight, that's enough. The story softens now. The sounds grow quieter like fabric settling, or a door being closed with care. Whatever scurried at the edge of the narrative has curled into rest, its claws tucked beneath its chin, its eyes slowly blinking into sleep. And yes, you can breathe again. Feel the rhythm of your chest, the slow roll of breath in and out. No fear, no footsteps, just stillness. Let your muscles release. Let your jaw loosen. Feel the weight of the blankets around you or the press of cool air against your arms. Let the space you're in feel smaller, calmer, safe. The rats are not racing through tunnels now. They're somewhere deep and warm resting. The city, its stones, its stories, its symbols has exhaled. So can you. The spiral has turned. Its lines traced and followed. Its center understood. And now for a time it can pause. Let the shapes fade from your mind. Let the candlelight in your thoughts dim slowly. Let the sounds drift back into softness, into hush, into the white noise of a city sleeping. You've walked far. You've listened closely. And now it's time to rest. Close your eyes. We are quiet now. We are whole. We are home.